Okay, so on Friday, President Trump was very quick to celebrate the release of new economic data.
And why not? Happy days are here again. In
a hastily arranged set of remarks, the president made a number of economic statements.
Now, this was 4.1 growth second quarter.
Yeah, he was so excited about them. So what you have to do is check them out, and you get a sense of whether or not he's telling the truth. Let's take a look at some of his claims.
Okay. I am thrilled to announce that in the second quarter of this year, the United States economy grew at the amazing rate of 4.1%.
That's very good.
He is correct about 4.1%.
That's good.
Growth.
4.1. If you can do that for a year, brother.
Here's the thing. Most economists would not use the word amazing to describe it. Quarterly increases of at least 4% are not unheard of. In fact, President Obama reached that mark 4 times, including 3 times higher than Trump's 4.1%. Trump's quarter would tie just the 13th best quarter under Bill Clinton and the 14th best under Reagan.
So you're saying that Bill Clinton had 13 better quarters than...
Yes, but Trump calls it amazing.
Well, it might be amazing, but
wait, 13 quarters that's like 3 years worth of quarters, right? That's a lot of quarters.
Yeah, no, that is a lot of quarters. So, but I will say this, Steve. I remember Bush W had what, a 5.6 or a 6. It was like amazing when the number came across there, and the economy seemed to be growing well here. Again, and if he stays at 4.1 the rest of the year, I'm going to say great job, great for Americans, great for everybody involved. But most economists were saying, just like they were predicting the deficit was going to rise because of reckless entitlement spending and defense spending and every other kind of spending you could think of, there were a lot of economists who 2 weeks ago were saying, hey, we're going to have a higher quarter this time, then it's going to go back down to 2%, 2.5%, correct?
Essentially, we can look at some numbers, and you can see both the historic and what looks like it's going to be coming in the future on this chart here. So, to your point,
you have charts.
We have a few charts.
That's very
we have a few charts.
Walked right into that.
So, to the point about higher quarters in the past, you can see, first of all, Obama's 4 quarters of growth that were higher, actually, than Trump's 4 quarters of growth.
Let me stop you right there. We're going to get to all the charts. But, John Meacham, as you look at those numbers, it is fascinating how Donald Trump will come out and say something that Bill Clinton beat 13 times was amazing, remarkable, the greatest thing ever. But Barack Obama would have, had GDP growth of over 5%. And he'd get out there and give a speech of, we understand that somewhere in America, people are still eating rats for dinner, so we're not going to celebrate this yet. Like, Barack Obama could never embrace good news. He always had to parse it. He always had to apologize for those left behind. It's just the opposite of Donald Trump. And somewhere in the middle is a leadership style that actually works.
I think that's right. And I think this is a great exhibit in what I think will be one of the running themes of the books about this era is going to be that Donald Trump was as much a reality show impresario as he was a real estate guy. He just pretends that what he wants to be true is true and has now inflicted that faux reality on all of us. One of the great ironies of, and we always dislike in others what we fear is true in ourselves. It's no mistake that this is the guy, no coincidence, that he coins the term fake news. Yeah. He's the embodiment of it.
Yeah.
Well, here's another of the president's claims on Friday.
The trade deficit, very dear to my heart because we've been ripped off by the world, has dropped by more than $50 billion. $52 billion to be exact.
The trade deficit did drop, but it was also the largest it's been since 2006, according to the Bureau of Economic Analysis.
All right. So Steve, first of all, there's so much we have to correct here. I'm just going to quickly say something about the trade deficit. Donald Trump will say the Chinese stole $82 billion from... Another way to put that is Americans get $82 billion worth of cheaper products. I mean, so much of the trade deficit is fueled by us importing goods that are competitive, that actually make working class Americans' lives much better. So when he goes around talking about the Chinese stealing, no, Americans are making the decision. They have the freedom to decide for themselves. Do I want to go to the grocery store? Do I want to go to Walmart? Do I want to go to Target? Do I want to get these items cheaper for myself and for my family?
That's all.
And they say yes.
And they say yes. And the trade deficit did play a role in this. But let me just show you a couple of things if I could. First, to go back to the first chart for 1 second, Joe, to reinforce a point you made. The 4.1% growth we got in the first quarter, these are Goldman Sachs estimates down here, and they show it trailing off as the quarters go on. And then the other point I'd make on this, if you see this red line, this is the year-over-year change in the growth rate. And so you can see it's gone up, it's gone down. There's nothing extraordinary, at least yet, about Donald Trump's growth rate. Now, on the trade deficit, which relates to these numbers, if we can look at the next chart, you'll see that, in fact, this 4.1% isn't all it's cracked up to be. Because of the 4.1, 0.8% of that, almost a full percentage of that point, is the stimulus that President Trump enacted, the spending cuts and the tax spending increases in the tax cuts that essentially destroyed our fiscal balance. Ironically, another 0.6 of the increase is the Chinese importing a lot more soybeans in this past quarter to get ahead of the tariffs that are coming. And so when you cut through it all, the actual unadjusted, the fairly adjusted base growth rate of the economy was actually 2.7%, not 4.1%.
Okay.
So here is more from the president on Friday.
We've accomplished an economic turnaround of historic proportions.
Yeah.
Hold on. Can we play? Can we play that again? I like that one.
This is a good one.
This is a good one.
Here we go.
We've accomplished an economic turnaround of historic proportions.
Okay, this comes from the guy. He has all of his club championships like that he won in his office because he cheated at the club championship.
And then his Time magazine
Yes, fake covers.
And the fake covers in the Time magazines. But yeah, the greatest turnaround in America. No, this is, Steve, again, anybody that just goes on a Google machine can see that you showed part that the economy, 08 was here, went up. And then it's been a steady, slow, gradual economic increase. And I mean, that's good news, but that's good news. It's, from Bush to Obama to Trump.
Sure, and we can show that in the context of jobs if you want. So Trump talks about all the jobs he's created, I think 3.5 million, but let's put that in some context and compare the last 18 months of Obama, where he created 206,000 jobs a month, to the first 18 months of Trump, where he created 193,000 jobs a month.
Hold on, I need to stop you here. I don't understand that, because it actually looks like Barack Obama created more jobs per month in his last 16 months than Donald Trump created in his first 16 months. But that can't be true, because Donald Trump and a lot of people on television that are news readers actually are talking about the explosive Trump economy. So you're not actually saying, hold on, help me out here. You're not saying, are you, that Barack Obama actually created more jobs his last 16 months?
18.
What's that?
18 months.
Oh, so it's more. So yeah, so you're not saying, are you, that Barack Obama created more jobs in his last 18 months as president? I mean, God, that would be the last year and a half. That'd be really hard to do. Than Donald Trump has in the first 18 months, are you?
I am saying that.
No, hold on.
But the president says he's...
And you know what? Statistics don't lie.
Yeah.
Wait, John? John, do you believe that... Show this chart again. I just think, because Donald Trump says this is the greatest economy we've ever had. Happy days are here again. Donald Trump has not created as many jobs his last 18 months as Barack Obama did his final 18 months?
Funnily enough, I do believe it, Joe, because of the fact that I, on your advice, have become very familiar with the Google machine and have been using it quite aggressively recently. I would want to correct one thing you said a second ago about the steadiness of economic growth.
Yes.
You want to not talk about the George W. Bush part of it, because, of course, that administration ended with the financial crisis that drove the country almost to the brink of the Depression.
To the brink of the Depression.
To a new Depression. So basically, since October of 2010, Steve, I think is correct, that is when the now 90-some months of consecutive job growth started. October 2010 with Barack Obama. Obama, we've been on a steady path.
So you're actually saying that what happened on September 15th, 2008 was not good for the economy?
I am saying that. Yeah. And we want to we just don't want to put Bush in that same
It's a little early, my bad.
Yeah.
This is staggering. Elise, if you talk to any Trump supporter, they will tell you, well, I support him because, you know what, he's the economy. We've got a record economy and record job growth and record this. We don't. Go to the Google machine and you will see that Barack Obama actually was more successful in creating jobs his last 18 months as president than Donald Trump has been his first 18 months as president. That simple.
But a lot of the role is cheerleader in chief and giving and projecting confidence in the economy. And that's something that Donald Trump
the truth.
has done.
But you don't need to say
He's done that.
turnaround.
Exactly.
You don't need
but
to
he
say
doesn't,
turnaround.
but he takes it way too far. So it's one thing to be pro-business and to convince the business community that, yes, he's going to be anti-regulation. He's going to be enacting policies that are more favorable to the business climate, but then just to all-out lie, that doesn't help anything.
And Steve, now this, what you just said, very true. You talk to just about any business owner, and they will tell you that he is more pro-business, that the regulatory relief helps a lot. And yes, they will take those tax cuts. They don't think it was done, you know, as well as it could have been done, but any tax cuts are good tax cuts. There is no doubt the business community is more favorable towards his policies than Barack Obama's policies, and actually think they have somebody in the White House that actually understands what they're going through. That said, you could have said the same thing for George W. Bush when the economy collapsed at the end of 2008. So that alone, and even if that is the case, that alone is not making the economy better than it was under Barack Obama. It's just not.
It's not. Look, there's no question the business community is happy with this and that he's given them a lot of stuff. But I think what we should also talk about is the average worker and where the average worker sits at the moment relative to what Trump is proclaiming as a turnaround of historic proportions.
Boy, the average worker, Elise, if I'm a Democrat, I'm talking about how the average worker got stiffed by these tariffs. They're going to be paying more when they go shopping. They got stiffed by the tax cuts. They went to the richest Americans, and they've gotten stiffed by health care. Pre-existing conditions, forget about it. Donald Trump and his administration are trying to obliterate protections that Congress laid down when it comes to pre-existing conditions, and we're going to talk about lower wage growth under Trump in a second.
Well, and there was a really disturbing stat that I read recently, something like 70% of renters, or not 70% of the cost, the average income coming in goes towards rent in a lot of the major cities. And that's completely unsustainable for workers to have to pay 70% of their income every month. I don't see how we don't have I'm going to be a little doomsday here, but we've had 10 good years post the recession. How do we not have a, dropping off the cliff soon?
And what about wages? Are they going up?
So let's take a look at wages, because that is the holy grail, right? Isn't it all about
everyone's happy? Ivanka visits a lot of workers, and I think that helps.
She also visits Iowa, by the way, but more on that later.
More on that later. Yeah. But isn't it the ultimate litmus test of an administration whether you make the average worker better off or not? So let's take a look
at to meet Ivanka.
Let's take a look at the average worker. Under Obama, the average worker got pay increases of about 0.8% a year. That's after adjusting for inflation. That's that line I just drew.
Right.
Under Trump, it has actually dropped to 0.3% a year. So, in fact, wage increases under Trump have gone from 0.8% under Obama to 0.3% under Trump. And in the last 2 quarters, wage increases, and these are all after adjusting for inflation, of course, which is the way to look at it. The last 2 quarters, the last 2 months, they've in fact been zero. There have been no wage increases.
So I do want to say, though, just from 40,000 feet, the U.S. economy under Barack Obama and the first 18 months under Donald Trump, pretty good, right? Again, it's a slower, gradual growth. Trump will probably be annualized at maybe 2%, 2.5%. It's like Obama, but again, pretty good, steady growth over time.
You know,
It's not 3%,
In an
but-
era of, yes, and exactly, in an era of somewhat diminished expectations of what we can perform and produce, 2% is a reasonable number, 2.5% is a reasonable number. But the problem is as my last chart shows, it's not getting to the average worker.
Right.
And the key thing about Trump is that if you look through all of his policies, find me one that has actually helped the average worker. Tax cuts for the rich, tariffs, deregulation? I don't think so.
Well, also tearing to shreds any hope for health care reform. That would help working class Americans, that would take care of their kids with pre-existing conditions, that would take care of the elderly. I mean, they're talking about slashing funding for nursing homes when you look at what they want to do with Medicaid. Yeah, it's just
Democrats are
salivating
about taking health care out on the campaign trail this fall.
By the way, I just checked the Google machine on your question. None. No Trump policies to help workers.
Okay.
Well, still ahead in May, he called Michael Cohen honest and honorable yesterday.
Oh, Rudy, this Rudy. Yeah, I remember when he called Michael Cohen.
He did.
Honest.
Totally. 100%.
And honorable.
But yesterday, he called him a pathological liar.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, he was the president's lawyer, though.
What?
Which is kind of interesting that the president employed a pathological liar as his lawyer.
But I don't understand. America's mayor said that he was an honest man.
Rudy Giuliani has
And
done
Rudy Giuliani
a
is
180
honorable.
on the president's former fixer. We're going to talk about why next on Morning Joe.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.